Let us pray. Almighty and all merciful God, through Jesus Christ, you have taught us to love one another, to love our neighbors as ourselves, and even love our enemies. Where there's violence and fear, let the peace and hope of Christ rule in our hearts, so we may not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Establish among us the values of your kingdom, where truth reigns, justice is done, and all are reconciled in love. When we put the intentions of our prayers into action by the way we live, may we live in the hope of our prayers by teaching ourselves and our children how to live in peace with one another and to work through our differences and seek after noble enterprise according to the gifts you have given us. All this we ask in Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Let's say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
This House is in session. Minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, 29th April 2026 will be deferred. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the aforesaid minutes be deferred.
The question is that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby deferred.
Announcements by Your Honour, the Speaker. Messages from His Excellency the President, petitions, papers.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I'm commanded to lay the annual reports and audited financial statements of the Barbados Aircraft and Aviation Services Company Limited for the years ending March 31st, 2024 and March 31st, 2025. I'm also commanded to lay the corporation top-up tax designation of competent authority and Globe Information Returns Regulations 2026.
Government notices, notices of questions, report from select committees, first readings of bills, statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42 subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Private members' business, sir. In the name of the Honourable Member for St. George North, to resume the debate on the passing of a resolution that the Honourable the House A supports the establishment of a national portable benefits framework through the National Insurance Security Social Security Service that ensures that Social Security follows the worker and not the job. B, calls for the development and the implementation of the supporting administrative, technological, and enforcement measures necessary to ensure that the framework is effective, equitable, and accessible. And C, commits Barbados in its 5th year as a republic to affirming that portable benefits constitute an act of nation building and a people-centered investment in fairness, resilience, and social stability, so that no worker is rendered invisible, no worker is left behind.
Honourable Member St. Michael South Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, it is an honor for me to rise in this debate on this resolution, and at the outset, I congratulate the member for St. George North on using this particular tool of this chamber in order to bring into the consciousness of her fellow members and through you, the people of Barbados, this question of the changing nature of work, the changing structure of our societies, and the way in which, therefore, we have to adjust, and we have to make sure that we are fit for purpose in supporting the needs of workers in this country. And so I am pleased to be able to rise in support of this resolution that ultimately seeks the establishment of a national portable benefits framework as a new approach to Social Security, to benefits, to pensions, to the other kinds of support, maternity, disability, all of the other kinds of things that people will need to have access to in the fulfillment of their lives as workers and as people. Sir, there is a new and growing global conversation on work. We see that in some parts of the world, there has been a move to a 4-day work week. I know that will find favor with many people. But that is a question too, sir, of how we structure ourselves to be productive. And so I will not go too far into that part of the conversation. But those societies that have found it necessary or have found it prudent to rearrange the way that we work so that we are also able to arrange our lives for other productive purposes and other purposes that may not be as productive as we think. You know, in development economics, sir, we talk about leisure time as a good. And one of the things that we know is that people who are poor do not really have leisure time. But it is a good, it is a benefit, it is something that has value. And so there is a global conversation on how we all organize ourselves for the work that we need to do, for the work that we find useful, but also for the other parts of our lives, whether it is participating in household reproductive activities, because let me be clear, that raising a household is productive work. It is not just reproductive work, it is productive work. And so it is my judgment, sir, that this resolution comes at a time when we are finding ourselves current with the global conversation. But sir, there's also a new conversation on Productivity. The honorable member for St. Peter is now famous for this discussion about production and protection. He's less famous for letting you know that it emerged from a conversation that he and I had on the issue of protection and productivity. You know, I am part of a Barbados Labour Party government that does not resile or does not hide away the fact that we are a Labour Party and that we consider that work and conversations with Labour and co-creation of the lives we want to live with the Labour movement and with workers is what brought us here. I think some people conflate that. Some people think that to be together with Labour means that you were somehow in collusion with Labour. That to be together with Labour means that somehow Labour is less able, or somehow the Labour movement is less able to carry out its mandate of protection. That could not be further from the truth. And I think we have to start to modernize the way in which we see government or the state's relationship with the Labour movement. We are part of a tripartite system of government. Well, that can only be the ideal way to govern, where Labour sits right there at the table with government in considering what are the measures, what are the policies, what are the ways of working that work best for workers at the same time that it works best for the state. And let me emphasize that. At the same time that it works best for the state. So yes, protection, and yes, rights, but also productivity, and also responsibility. Protection and productivity, rights and responsibility. So I start there, sir, because I believe that that is a new conversation that we have to have. And the notion that the two are separate and that a labor movement cannot at the same time seek to protect and defend workers' rights while also emphasizing that we have a commitment to the country to all be productive in our various roles, we have to disabuse ourselves of the notion that those two cannot coexist, because in fact they must coexist. The Ministry of Economic Affairs is now working to bring a new Competitiveness and Productivity Commission. And the reason we found it necessary so to do is that Barbados is losing the battle on productivity. And when we talk productivity, we're not just talking about worker productivity. We are talking about the productivity of all the systems that support the worker, but with which the worker interacts as well. But the fact is that we are losing the fight in some ways on productivity. And we know that if we are to succeed, that we need to make sure that we are doing all that is necessary to cause us all to be productive and to contribute everything that we need to for us to be productive. But sir, it's a multifaceted idea, and I may sound to you as if I am digressing a bit, but I promise you I am not. The idea of productivity is a multifaceted one because it also has to do with the idea of order and predictability, and that is one of the things that this resolution highlights for us, that there needs to be a certain level of predictability in what people can come to expect in their benefits. Sir, very early in my career, I decided to become a self-employed person, and I'll tell you why. I started out working within the UN system as an economist, and I very quickly realized that the services that I had to offer were in demand by more people than the United Nations. And in fact, holding a job with that particular agency was stopping me from doing all kinds of far more exciting work with other people. And so I had a conversation with the person who hired me at the time, and I said, I read all of the different kinds of contracts that were available at the time, and I said, look, I like this work, and I like this job, and we have to, what this resolution causes us to do is to separate the job from work. A job is a thing that exists in a place. My work and how I fulfill myself through work is something that I carry with me. And so I said to them, look, I feel that I can go and also do this work in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with the government there, or also do this work in Jamaica with the government there, and it helps us with what we want to achieve. And so I want to vary the nature of my contract, and I want to be a consultant. And there are those who thought that that was a terrible idea, and I soon came to find out why. And the reason that it turned out to not be the best idea, if for the context in which we live, is that people don't understand a person who is a consultant, who is not attached to a particular institution. Sir, in many ways, we still have almost a plantation mentality. It's almost like asking somebody, well, who you concern? How can you be floating about in life not attached to a place? And I'll tell you what I mean. Even though I ended up earning far more in that role where I was able to work for have different clients and work in different institutions, when I approached a financial institution, when I went to the bank or to the credit union and said, look, I want to borrow some money to do X or do Y, help my mother fix the house. When you look at the form that you have to complete, who is your employer? What is the address? So your employer can't exist in a digital space at all. So I need to know where the employer can be found. What is the employer's address? What is the phone number? So right from the outset, my value as a worker, my identity as a worker is tied up in somebody else's business. And so, notwithstanding that I was making double what I would have been writing on their form if I were still in that job, there was nothing for me. We cannot lend you a cent. Because when we're ready to collect our money, we have to know who to come and knock, who doors to come and knock to send the bailiff at from 9 to 5. We have to know that you are a worthy worker as mandated or as identified by somebody else, but that must be a plantation mentality. Because you can't believe me that I show you what I've earned over the past 12 months in a consistent way, that I am paying my bills in a reliable way. And so this resolution, why it is so transformational is that it is not just calling on the National Insurance Social Security Service to act in the ways laid out here, but it is calling on all of us to act as a society to understand how work is changing. It is calling on the financial institutions to act, because it means that we now have to vary and make more nuanced and make more complex, but sometimes complexity is necessary. Sometimes sophistication in our systems is necessary to be able to accommodate people. Because I will tell you, whether it is construction and people who do steel bending or people who do whatever it is that the work that they do, people who do tiling, people who do, or it is economics and people who are offering services to government, or it is project management. Even when I go and set up a company and I tell them I am the sole director and I am the sole shareholder, they don't trust me. They don't trust me. They want to see something that has been around for 200 years for 50 years, for 25 years. They want to know that I have a boss who is telling them that I am a worthwhile individual. In 2026, in the 5th year of Barbados being a republic, that is where we find ourselves. And that is what this resolution is saying must change to accommodate how people work, but also to accommodate the fact that people work in different areas over time. It may come back to haunt me that I say what I'm about to say. But this job that I hold now, as the happy representative of the people of St. Michael South Central, is the longest job that I have had. And long may it continue. And long may it continue. But the point I'm making, sir, is that people of my generation and people of younger generations go to a place for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, learn everything inside and out. Learn it from top to bottom. Learn how to unlock the door, learn how to mop the floor, learn how to do everything. They may even become the CEO or the head of agency or whatever it is. They learn right through and they say, you know what? I know how this works. I have this covered. I am ready to move on to something else. That is the nature of how people work. I think of my mother, sir, who worked at the knitting mill as a seamstress early on. She also worked, when she became qualified as a nursing assistant, at the geriatric hospital. She also worked as a child care attendant. And she was carrying the work of care throughout different jobs. And so we need to have a social security system that says to people, we are providing services to the worker, not to the job. We're not defining you just in your relationship to a single employer. A system that allows for several different employers to contribute at once. A system that allows more synchronicity or a seamless movement between different jobs to make sure that there's no lapse, there's no lag, I don't have to go and check and recheck and re-register to see what is happening to my benefits. We simply have to make it easier for people to live the lives that they value. And the life that I value might be that I work as a photographer for the Member for Christchurch South, and then I work as a graphic artist for the Member for Christchurch West, and then I also work as an MC for the Member for St. Peter. Collectively, I give one 3 hours a day, I give another one, or I give one 2 days a week, and I give another one 3 days a week. And I know that I am able to have all of that work count. The system that we have now simply doesn't allow for that. And arguably, the system that we have now makes the employer-employee relationship less about the worker and more about the system, as if we are servicing a system. We are not servicing a system, we are servicing people. And so it becomes necessary for us to be able to set ourselves up to be able to service those people. But sir, the member for St. George North will also realize that this calls for a reconsideration of the existing Employment Rights Act. And in preparing, sir, for this debate and in reviewing that legislation, it struck me that it contains a lot of rigidity in its definitions and in the way in which we see this notion of the employer. What does it mean for a person to be an employee? It is quite rigid. And if we are to make way for a system where benefits follow the worker and not the job, then it is going to mean a reconsideration of how we treat that act. It will possibly mean some revisions to the legislation such that we have more, such that it allows for more, admits of more flexibility in some of the definitions and therefore of the treatment of work and people, employer and employee. Quite frankly, consultants have clients. And it may be that a client, collectively with other clients, will have a certain responsibility. But it also is, and I don't say maybe, I say it also is true that the worker has a responsibility. My mother used to have this thing that she would say, when I seem clueless about something, when I reached a certain age, you know, we used to go to, well, at the time it was Lady Mead Polyclinic, it's now Sir Winston Scott. And once I reached a certain age, and I would say, well, I have an appointment, I would say to her, where is my card, or where's my this, or where's my that, or mommy, what can, you know, tell me, remind me. And she would say, well, you at the age where you old enough to get up and see about yourself. And I think that we need to emphasize for all of us that we gotta see about ourselves when it comes to our benefits and making sure that we are protected. In my mind, and I don't know if it is the intent, but in my mind, what the framework that is referenced in this resolution will now require is that it is not fully in the hands of one company or one employer to decide my fate when it comes to benefits. It is now actually more fully in my hands to make sure that whomever are my clients, if I offer services, whomever are my different employers, together with me, I have to make sure that I am covered. I have to take a greater role in taking ownership of the benefits that will eventually accrue to me, or that the benefits that will accrue to me during my time as a worker in whatever, whether it's maternity or sickness benefits or whatever it is. But this framework that this resolution calls for will mean that I, as the individual, have to take greater responsibility for understanding my benefits. It will mean, too, that the NISSS will also have to intensify its education and public awareness of what benefits exist and how these benefits work. And it will mean further that whatever are the digital systems that exist for people to pay those benefits and to make sure those benefits exist also have to be strengthened. Sir, when we did the work to strengthen the NIS, the social security system, a couple years ago, to expand the ways in which self-employed people could contribute, to expand the benefits to self-employed people, and so on, I believe that that was the first step in getting us to where this resolution takes us. I believe that was the first step in understanding that work is changing, that the nature of work is changing, but I believe that was also the first step in giving people more agency, putting people more in charge of understanding their benefits, and I'll tell you why. All of us in here who represent people and who sit with people weekly, constituents come to us, we know this to be a challenge. That a person will come and say, I have been told by NIS that I do not have sufficient contributions. And they will say to me often, NIS has given me a payment. I am not getting any more than that. I am not getting a monthly pension. That is a standard consideration. That's a standard conversation that we have all the time. And it says to me that we haven't yet reached the place, and to be fair to many of those individuals, they're at an age where they never got the opportunity to interact much with the NIS system. At least in their working time, it was not as modernized, it was not as accessible perhaps as it is now. But what has happened then is that people reach the pensionable age and realize that even though they have been working all their lives, because contributions were not paid in under certain circumstances, either because they didn't understand the nature of the arrangement, or the employer did not do the right thing, or some combination of those factors, the point is that they get to that point and there is very little recourse. And so a system that now allows for them to easily see that their benefits are following them through all the different phases of their work. I will have people come to me, Mr. Speaker, and say, I worked in that place and that place and that place and this place, but there was never any way to track, or there was never any attention to tracking to make sure that those benefits were following them. And so there has to be, you know, the reason I find this work exciting is that it allows us then to follow the worker through a person's life cycle so that they're always carrying with them, and that's where the word portability comes in, they're always carrying with them the benefits and the protection that they deserve as workers in this country. But sir, these efforts and this conversation will always come back to productivity. And I started talking about predictability because what this does, what this framework referenced in this resolution does, is it gives people predictability. I know that I have benefits that follow me, notwithstanding where I have worked or for how long or under what arrangements. And predictability, sir.
Your Honourable has 2 more minutes.
Thank you, sir. Can contribute to productivity. And let me put it in simple terms. If I feel safe in my work, if I know that I'm protected, if I know that I have benefits, then it means that I'm likely to be able to be more productive because I am less anxious about what will happen if something happens to me. It is the kind of predictability that we keep saying that we want to have in the private sector for investors. It's the kind of predictability that we say that we want to have for all services across government. And I dare say then, sir, that is the kind of predictability that we owe to workers, even as we discuss this question of benefits and how they work. So, sir, all that remains to be said by me is that I am pleased that we are giving this resolution the full length and breadth of debate that it deserves. But I also stand here to commit to the member for St. George North, as I'm sure the member for St. Peter has did when he spoke, that those of us who are in government have to commit through this resolution and through this debate to move this to action. That is the purpose of instruments like this in this House, not just to resolve that it will happen, but to commit our hearts and hands and feet and fingers to making sure that it happens. And sir, as I close, I give that commitment to this honourable chamber. I'm obliged to you.
Honourable St. Philip West.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to add my voice of support to this portable social benefits resolution. I want to say, sir, today that I stand here wishing to be supportive of this resolution on behalf of the farmer in Ebenezer and on behalf of the mason in Chapel and countless others whose stories today, sir, might be very different had there been in place a structured framework for portable social security benefits. Not just a structure in place, but one where that framework people were knowledgeable about it. In other words, the information was available, widely available, that they could see themselves being a part of it, and that in fact they felt that the benefits were meaningful to them. They knew that, and that in fact they felt supported in becoming a part of it. And I share this, sir, because I see this proposal as more than just a policy. I see it as a pathway, sir, a pathway to social security access for people who might not ordinarily get it. And it is also, sir, a pathway to peace of mind. Let me share with you, sir, the story of some of the people in St. Philip West who, sir, are now at a pensionable age, but they're running around trying to figure out what they will get to retire on. We should not have people in this situation, but it is the reality. There's this gentleman, sir, he's in Ebenezer. He started working in the private sector many years ago. Then he went into farming. And he didn't see himself structured in a way. He didn't have enough information available to him. He did not identify with the kind of people who pay international insurance. And so he didn't. What has happened is he has now been told that he does not have enough contributions to earn a pension. He's an older man, sir. He is out in the fields every day. He enjoys it, but wish that he could take a break, but he can't. He is now waiting on a decision as to how he will qualify for any benefits in his older years because he didn't have the level of contributions that would be recognized for him to get a livable pension. Then there's our mason in Chapel, sir. He's in a similar situation. He was working for a company, and then he went and he learned a trade. He went into masonry, and he did job work, which means he went from one job to the other, not working for any particular one of the clients, but he was doing job work. Contributions were made from his original employer, but not enough for him to get an automatic pension. Again, we as a government and as a country are now encouraging people to learn skills. We are encouraging people into entrepreneurial activity and to various forms of self-employment. And Mr. Speaker, if we are serious and we are thinking long-term, we must find a way for persons who would follow such paths as we are suggesting and encouraging. We must find a way for them to feel protected and to feel secure by National Social Services benefit. You know, sir, we are in a changing world of work and in a changing culture of working. There was a time, sir, when cradle to grave was the job that we took. For 30, 40, 50 years, we are working full-time with a particular company, and we are feeling secure in that. But, sir, the current generation, and you heard the honorable member who spoke recently before me talking about a different mindset of this current generation. This current generation, they are navigating more fluid economies, and they are seeking many different ways of financing their lives. The cradle-to-grave model, that traditional full-time with one entity, is not really the way in which many people choose to go in 2026. And sir, with that range of different models for working and financing life, we have to ensure, sir, that our current social security system system, as well as our current laws, as well as the current ways in which we go about supporting people, those things have to evolve as well. Our current social security system does not make it easy in some ways. In some places there is access, but it is not always easy. That is what I am being told by my constituents, sir. Not always easy for them to be able to get the benefits they need when they are in situations where they have side hustles, as when they have multiple little jobs and little hustles that they're doing, when they are doing occasional work in terms of they break a job here and they break a job there, in terms of them having home-based businesses, sir, being self-employed, in terms of other types of informal work that they're doing, whether they're also freelancers and graphic artists and other artists and doing the kind of work that does not have the kind of stability that we have come to expect with the traditional cradle-to-grave approach to how people do work. And because of all of these, sir, we need to have a structured national system for portable benefits that will give them the kind of peace of mind and give them the kind of opportunity to participate in a way that will help them to feel as if they are really and truly a valued part of this system. What this portable benefits framework proposes to do is that it seeks to ensure that people can in fact carry their benefits in their own name rather than in the name of an employer, and that it stays with them, that those benefits, they don't go through the stop and starts that happens now when people make transitions, and that when transitions are made, they in fact have a way of ensuring that they work for them. We have talked, Mr. Speaker, about making people's lives better. And certainly the opportunity is there in this resolution, should we choose to go forward, and I believe this government is a government that will commit. The opportunity is there for more people to have access to Social Security. More of them can pay in. It will ensure continuity, that when they move from one job to the other on their own or as part of a team of a more formalized company, that they can carry them. That they will have enhanced true Social Security, where they can have that peace of mind, and that there's universal access. That no matter what types of job, how that job, your employment is categorized, you can have access to opportunities for better Social Security. And sir, I would say to you that portable benefits matter. It matters in a modern marketplace because it does a number of things. As we seek to develop a more flexible workforce, portable benefits will be an important part of the environment and the facilitating environment that we allow for that. As we seek to improve the financial security of the people, portable benefits will be a part of that. As we seek to address issues of job lock. And when I talk about job lock, there are a number of people who find themselves locked in a job. They want to move, they want to move on, they want to do something different. But because their social security benefits are tied, they feel like they're in a job lock. This resolution offers the opportunity for us to be able to overcome some of the challenges people face with regards to job lock. This is also a part of modernizing our labor laws and our labor policy. We cannot say that we are staying current when in fact we allow our policy and our laws to remain in a time that is not relevant to now. And I will say to you, sir, that this resolution also offers the opportunity to increase talent competition. There is competition out there for talent, sir. And I believe that with portability benefits, it will create an environment that will allow both government as well as private businesses to attract high-quality, independent workers in a very competitive market. Sir, I end as I began. This policy is not just a policy, it is a pathway for everyone from my farmer in Ebenezer to my mason in Chapel to a number of the young people who are of a different generation who are seeing that cradle to grave is no longer the model they wish to follow in terms of how they finance their lives. And sir, because of what this resolution offers to Barbados in terms of developing our labor market, I thank you for the opportunity and I am supportive. I feel obliged.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I take a particular pleasure in raising to speak on this resolution, and I wish to commend the Honourable Member for St. George North on having the courage, the vision, the foresight, and the inherent fairness in her heart to put this before the Parliament of Barbados and ultimately the people of Barbados. When we speak about labor, sir, at one point in time, when you talk about labor, the name that jumped to mind was Sir Roy Trotman. And sir, he has done an excellent job on behalf of the working class in Barbados. He's done an excellent job on behalf of fairness and fighting for the underprivileged. But sir, when we speak about labor now, the name that jumps to mind is Tony Moore.
And not the member for St. George North.
No,
Tony
no.
Moore.
Precisely, sir. Tony Moore, sir, who is the member for St. George North. And I know we always refer to members by their parliamentary designation, sir, but the fact is the name Tony is the name that people think of with labor. Sir, so it is not to be unexpected that these initiatives would then arise and be brought. But equally, sir, there are a lot of things that need changing in Barbados. There are a lot of things that people think of to do. There are a lot of things that people in the House sit down and say, I wish this person did this, or I wish this was different. And we never get past the stage of wishing and hoping to actually put in pen to paper and pedal to the metal. And in this instance, that was done by the Honourable Member for St. George North. I want to start, sir, by congratulating her on bringing this private member's resolution before the Parliament. Now, sir, quite often we give things names, and the average person does not actually understand what it means. So we talk about portability. I am sure if you go and ask the average person outside Parliament who's passing by the gate, what does portability of benefits mean, they would have not a clue. And it is necessary for us sir, for this to work, to have the widest possible educational program, because unless a worker understands their entitlements, not just their benefits, but their entitlements, then they're always at the whim and fancy and the mercy of somebody else. So I think that in the shortest possible time, sir, we have to have a national campaign of education on what portability of benefits are. Why is it necessary? What does it mean? What does it do for you, the worker? What does it mean for you, the employer? What does it mean for Barbados as a whole? How does it hinder you? How does it help you? We have to have that widest possible campaign, sir. And it is not a campaign, quite frankly, a lot of policies that we do affect segments. A lot of policies that we create affect particular interest groups. This, sir, affects everyone. This affects the worker at the entry level. This affects middle management. This affects the CEO. This affects the self-employed. This affects the casual worker. This affects those who have multiple jobs. At the end of the day, this resolution is about fairness. It's about doing what is fair. So, sir, what are portable benefits? Portable benefits, sir, are benefits that a person accrues by working and that follow the person from job to job. The critical thing is they are not tied to the employer and they're not tied to the job. As a worker works and pays into a system, that benefit that they pay in is effectively held on trust for them until such time as they need it. It's almost like an insurance policy. As it stands now, sir, a lot of benefits that accrue to a worker are tied to their employment. We know of situations in Barbados where people are afraid to leave a job because they don't want to lose the benefit. You have a sick child and you get certain insurance coverage pursuant to your job, and you're frightened to leave the job because you don't want to lose the insurance coverage that that job provides for you. That is not right. With most things, sir, benefits accrue based on time. If the time is calculated, sir, by the length of time in a particular job, it operates to the detriment of the employee. If the time is calculated by reference to how long the person has worked in whatever job, it accrues to the benefit of the person. Sir, we keep talking about bargaining power. The unions are big on bargaining power. The word bargaining occurs all the time. Collective bargaining, union, bargaining. This actually enhances the ability of the worker to bargain for themselves. You are not tied or beholden to anyone where benefits are concerned. You are free to look around. If I happen to be in this job for 2 years or 3 years, and I see something that looks even better for me, I am now free to pick up and leave and go and investigate my options with that better job, knowing that the benefits I accrued in my last job are not lost to me on leaving the company. I can now pick up and go and start to work for somebody who treats me better, somebody who's paying me more money, and I'm not even thinking, I'm going to work with the probation period. If I work there for the 6 months and it don't work out, I still take the benefits I got there and go to the next one. So it gives the workers options. So life has ups and downs. Every day is not the same. Every year is not the same. If you're in a business and I'm working for you and we building furniture and there's a boom, right? I said, if it slows down, if things get hard, people buying furniture, they might repair what they had. Through no fault of my own, I might be the best joiner in Barbados through no fault of my own because the business is not generating income, I'm out. It gives me now the flexibility to go and try for myself and take the benefits I accrued under my employer, pay in on my own behalf, and still accrue benefits to myself. Somebody, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, sir, but somebody said that the benefits should move. Agreed entirely. Fairness. What I work for, what I pay into, should come with me. Sir, if ever there was an indicator of economic security or a way to increase the economic security of the average person in Barbados, it is through portable benefits. This legislation and this policy, this resolution, sir, sets out a framework. It doesn't, we have not dropped into the details. It's not yet formalized as to what this is going to look like. This requires, we always say, and this government is about a whole of Barbados approach. This is a whole of Barbados discussion. We have an enviable social partnership, a tripartite partnership. If ever there was something that was suited for the social partnership, for full ventilation, full discussion, and full agreement, sir, this is it. Because this does not just touch and concern government. It's not that government, I would hope, sir, that we do not limit this to government. It must, sir, also involve the private sector. There must be a, for this to work, it should be as widespread as it possibly could be to give persons the best possible options. I also feel, sir, it should not be limited to Barbados. My benefit should be portable wherever I come from. That may require discussion at a higher level. That may require discussions at the level of CARICOM. I think some have been had in relation to this already. I don't know whether they've crystallized, right? But the reality, sir, is that if I work and I contribute to the social services in Trinidad, if I pay into the equivalent of the NISS in Trinidad, and I leave to come to work in Barbados, the fact is that money is held on trust for me. I pay taxes already, so the taxes are gone. But what I pay into the social service is me insuring myself against what may happen, is me insuring myself against job loss, is me insuring myself against a disability, is me insuring myself against sickness. That money does not belong to the government. The benefit actually accrues to the individual. So if I leave and come to Barbados, sir, then quite frankly, those benefits should come with me. We're going to have to harmonize and work out an arrangement between countries for us to get this far. And sir, I might be taking this in a direction that the honourable member did not actually intend to be taken in this debate. But if we're talking about it, let's talk about it as widely as we can. Let's talk about the possibilities of it. There's a framework here. This framework starts with the basic concept that we need an acceptance. I think that is what the honourable member is asking for. The resolution is asking for us to accept on behalf of the people of Barbados that this needs to happen. Once we get past that hurdle, that it needs to happen in principle, then we start to get onto the details. What does it look like? How far does it go? What does it cover? Does it cover insurance plans? So one of the biggest issues in Barbados, sir, is actually insurance. I spoke about it earlier. The insurance is tied to the company, to the group. If I start to work with Duguid Inc., Duguid Construction Company Inc., and I happen to be on his insurance plan, and it is a good plan, and he has made the contribution on my behalf, I have made the contribution on my behalf, and the contribution totals X, so X plus Y. If I have to leave, there's no good reason, if I am still able to cover the X that my employer was paying, that I should not continue on the plan. It's the same person. It is a simple matter, can the premium be paid on my behalf? Whatever my premium, my allocation, my premium was, if I'm in a position to cover that, I should be able to continue under the insurance policy. I should not lose my good benefits with William Duguid Construction, Inc. because he didn't like me. Because he think I smiled at his wife. Which I didn't, sir, which I didn't. But the point is, once I am able to continue the set of circumstances that existed and for which I was obtaining a benefit, either actual, sir, or prospective, I should be allowed to keep that. I should not have to leave William Duguid Inc. and his policy, sir, and go and work with Tyra Trotman Company Limited, where the benefits are less, and have to go in to a poor Reiki program. Which would not be so correct. I'm just looking, sir, and calling names, but the names tend to actually crystallize the fact that we're talking about different things. So, sir, at the end of the day, it's about the worker, it's about the employer, the employee, it's about the person. Sir, this is a game changer for us. We have the opportunity to create the best, most comprehensive, most practical system while taking into account the particularities of the Barbadian experience. There are a lot of people, sir, who hustle. There are a lot of people who work multiple jobs. I know a number of people, sir, who have their day job, then they go and work in a restaurant in the evening, and on Saturdays or somewhere they might pick something else up somewhere else. Imagine a Barbados where my NIS contribution is not just in relation to my principal job, but I can actually pay in and be covered or get coverage under every little job I pick up. Everywhere I'm working, I get the coverage. If I'm willing to pay, willing to sign it, willing to do my part, and it was said by the Honourable Member for St. Philip West that the worker has to take some responsibility as well. The individual has to take some responsibility. All of the benefits that we provide for you, sir, all of the options we provide for you, no matter what we try to secure for you, if you do not do your part, then it falls flat. If you don't make your payment, it falls flat. If you don't create the circumstance where you can actually port, it falls flat. I spoke to somebody recently, sir, who was working 3 jobs. I cannot contemplate how somebody could work 3 jobs, sir. They're working 3 jobs. So they were getting the income in relation to 3 jobs. One was the main, but then you supplemented their monthly expenses with the other 2 jobs. When that person got sick, they got a benefit in relation to the main job. But understand, they were hustling 2 others. So because they were not able to get a benefit from the other 2, what they were getting under the main job did not help them. They were in potters. They couldn't go and hustle because they were injured. We need to meet you at the level of your capacity. We need to meet you at the level of what it is that you're earning. We have the perfect opportunity, sir, to design the system that works best for as many people as possible. I have no doubt, sir, that the Honourable Member is going to go into the widest possible consultation. But the widest possible consultation must also involve the realities of those we're not even contemplating. We have to hear from people what their experience is. We have to hear from everybody so that the system, once designed, covers as many persons as possible. It's about fairness. I, sir, want to take this opportunity to urge, in particular, the self-employed persons, to pay their contributions into the NISS. During COVID, we faced the stark reality that a lot of people were not contributing to the social welfare scheme, the social scheme. We had a pandemic that affected everyone in Barbados, and the government did not have a choice. This government took the responsible position of saying we have to meet people where they are. This is not the time to try to prove a point to anybody. We will cover as many people as we can. Sir, that's a one-off. We, sir, who formed the government, we know what that costs Barbados. The Honourable Member for St. George North knows what it costs Barbados to do that universal coverage in a difficult circumstance. And that was the government, sir, doing that when no money was coming in. So it's not even a case of we were in the land of the plenty and we're able to pay out the back pocket without it making a difference. The government had to dig deep, search hard, and pull long to be able to meet its commitment to the people of Barbados. But we did it. But there's a lesson in that. The persons who dodged the bullet because the government stepped up to cover them owe it to themselves, sir, and owe it to the country, and owe it to the other people whose contributions covered them when they did not make contributions, to actually do the right thing. Sir, I have no sympathy or tolerance for self-employed professionals who do not do what is right. There are a set of people in Barbados, sir. There are certain sectors that are cornering money. But you make a decision to hedge your bets. Nobody plans, nobody, sir, sits down and thinks to themselves, what if I break my foot tomorrow? Nobody sits down and thinks for themselves, what if I get sick? A lot of us in Barbados do not believe in the concept of insurance. The insurance is paying the security now for something that may or may not happen. A lot of persons, sir, in Barbados are on the it may not happen. Why am I paying that when it may not happen? We talked about COVID just now, sir, but when Hurricane Elsa hit, most of the houses that were damaged were uninsured. And the government again had to step up once again and cover people. I will use an anecdotal example, sir. It may paint me in a bad light, but I'll use an anecdotal example. I have no luck with cell phones, sir. I have no luck. If it's possible to fall in a pool or go in the sea or something, I ain't saying toilet, right? If it is possible, sir, to break your phone, I can break mine. I don't think I ever had a phone, sir, that lasted out, that became obsolete because the fluctuation of time and whatnot made the programming redundant, sir. I've never had that luxury with a phone. The predecessor to this phone, sir, I bought it when I was in Miami. And the person at Best Buy said to me, for $42.99, you can insure your phone against anything, whatever damage to your phone, for 2 years, for $42, whatever damage, they will fix it or they replace it. with my history, with my known history, sir, I should have been the perfect person to go and pay that, but I did not. I left Best Buy, and I went home. I went to where I was staying. Took the phone to the box, sir. First thing I do is charge the phone. I plug the phone in and put it on top of a dresser, and then lay down to have a sleep while the phone charged. I got up somewhere in there to go to the bathroom, and my foot hooked into the cord. Phone fell face down on some tiles and shattered. 3 hours, sir, was how long I had that phone for. 3 hours. 3 hours. I went back to Best Buy to ask what they could do for me. They said nothing. I had no choice. I had to buy another phone. And you know what, sir? I still didn't take the package. That's a phone. I can laugh at that, sir, because that's a phone. That's not my house. It's not my life. It is not my health. It's not the health of my child. It's not my car. Insurance and Social Security systems exist for a reason. You hope never to have to use them, but in the event that you do, it makes the loss a little bit more bearable. It makes the downtime weatherable. It makes the bills that still come when you're incapacitated manageable. This is another step in that we are saying because these things exist, it should not be tied, and you should not be trapped in employment that does not suit you because you are afraid to lose what you are entitled to. I want to end as I started, and thank the Honourable Member for having the courage to put this into the national discussion. I want to encourage all who work to make the contributions and do their part. We have the experience of COVID. We have the experience of ELSA. Let us not have the experience of something a lot more personal and a lot more closer to home, where we are unprotected when we could have actually been protected. I urge people to investigate, ask questions. I am sure, sir, that the union has a hotline. I'm asking an open-ended question, sir, or somebody that you could call and ask a question to about portability and these things. Ask a question. Know that this applies to you. Every single person in Barbados who is working, this applies to you. The law has not yet been written. The law has not yet been framed. There is a chance to include, encompass, and take account of as many situations and circumstances as we possibly can. Be a part of the discussion. Share your ideas as what you expect it to look like, what you hope it looks like, what you hope it covers. But at the end of the day, know your rights as they exist now, and imagine your rights as they could exist if this framework actually comes to fruition. So, sir, I thank the Honourable Member for St. George North for bringing it, and I hope that my voice has reached the persons who still refuse to insure, who still refuse to accept the social responsibility to join the NIS scheme, and especially those persons who know that in the last couple of times of crisis, the government bailed you out, although you did not contribute, and understand that it's unlikely we can never, ever do that again at that level, at that scale. A word to the wise is sufficient. Thank you, sir.
The question is that further consideration of this resolution be suspended. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. Further consideration of this resolution is hereby suspended.
So I beg to move that this honorable chamber be suspended until 11:55.
The question is that this honorable chamber be suspended until 11:55 a.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands suspended until 11:55 a.m. This sitting is resumed.
Mr. Speaker, private members, business resumed.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Sir, I wish to move that we postpone further consideration of this private member's resolution, sir.
The question is that the private members, but the resolution in relation to the private members bill be postponed. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
First one. Government business, sir.
Government business is the order of the day.
Order number 6, in the name of the Honourable Minister of Tourism and International Transport, to move the second reading of the Maritime Areas Jurisdiction and Rights Bill 2026.
Honourable Member for Christchurch for St. Michael West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the order paper today, we have another matter relating to the maritime as well, and it refers to the Seafarers Bill. I would like to seek your permission, sir, to proceed with a cognate debate in respect of both the Maritime Areas Jurisdiction and Rights Bill and the Seafarers Bill, Mr. Speaker.
The question is that orders number 6 and 7 be debated as a cognate debate in that they are inextricably linked. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Orders number 6 and 7 will be done as a cognate debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me first of all, in moving the second reading of both bills, once again thank the officers within the ministry. Now, Mr. Speaker, as you well know, and I've said it before, that I'm not an expert as it relates to these matters, particularly matters of maritime, and therefore I rely very heavily on the technical officers who would brief me. In so much as the briefing occurs, obviously, as a minister, you're responsible for policy and taking policy positions to the cabinet, so you still have to be versed somewhat with the matters. Recognizing as well, Mr. Speaker, that between 2024 and 2025, we brought approximately 10 bills to this honourable chamber to deal with issues relating to maritime. And today is now another opportunity for us to present another 2 bills relating to, obviously, maritime affairs. Mr. Speaker, we're doing all of this because, as I would have mentioned on several other occasions, in 2018 there was an audit executed by the International Maritime Organization with respect to maritime affairs in Barbados. And as a result of that audit, there were a number of deficiencies identified. And the ministry has been working assiduously and very diligently, I may add, since that audit to ensure that we have a number of bills brought to this honourable chamber to ensure that we not only conform with the audit requirements of the IMO and conform to all of the new arrangements taking place within the maritime sector, but also an opportunity for us as a ministry to see where we can obviously enact legislation to present Barbados as a very attractive maritime space and destination, which of course will yield significant benefits to Barbados. And therefore, in respect of the bills, and I'll go through them one at a time, the Maritime Areas Jurisdiction and Rights Bill 2026 is essentially a part of that suite of legislation that we continue to coordinate and of course regulate the activities relating to maritime affairs. Of course, embedded in all of this has to do with the coastal state control, and of course it is important that if you want to ensure that you have coastal state control, that you have the regulatory functions within the maritime division ensuring that you have flag state control, ensuring you have port state control, and of course, like I said earlier, coastal state control over coastal state, which is the jurisdiction of the state. Barbados, as a member of the International Maritime Organization, is also a party to the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. And of course, the IMO being the regulatory arm functioning within that framework, of course, is an opportunity for us to ensure that we incorporate into legislation all of the necessary changes that take place from time to time. I may add as well that it's not a sterile environment. It's always ever revolving. There are new, for example, mandates that we have to follow. And as you can well see, with everything that's happening in global shipping arena and maritime affairs, it is important that we have our legislation and regulations updated as often as possible. Against this backdrop, also, Mr. Speaker, you'll be well aware that we brought, for example, the Maritime Heritage and Underwater, the Maritime and Underwater Heritage Act to this Parliament. That was passed back in 2025, and it also presents an opportunity now to partner with this new legislation, as we may refer to as sister legislation, to ensure that the Maritime Areas Jurisdiction and Rights Bill also be shaped here. The primary objective of the bill, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure and to establish a robust legal regime for the maritime areas of Barbados. It defines the extent of the state's sovereignty and jurisdiction, facilitates the sustainable management of maritime resources, and incorporates international standards for the protection of marine biodiversity. The bill, Part 1, sets out, Mr. Speaker, the preliminary matters. Of course, the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, 1982, the agreement under the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea and the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity areas beyond national jurisdictions, and of course, the agreement relating to the implementation of Part 11 of the United Nations Convention on Law of the Seas, 1992. Part 2, which deals with clauses 5 to 4, outlines the administrative framework of the bill and clearly articulates the responsibilities and the ministerial portfolios relating to activities within the scope of the bill. For example, responsibility for administration and maritime affairs, that is distributed across some key portfolios and ministries. Within the maritime affairs, for example, you have opportunity and key responsibilities resulting from that to develop overarching ocean policy, for us to maintain maritime regulation consistent, of course, with international law, in part what we're doing today, standards and best practices, ocean resources and governance, and of course, management. Of course, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is always tasked with the negotiations relating to maritime boundaries, with neighboring states and international treaty compliance, national security, of course, very important. Of course, as we well know, maritime dominates awareness, border protection, and enforcement of laws within all maritime zones. The environment, which also has a significant role to play with respect to pollution prevention, environmental impacts, and of course, conservation. And of course, the Barbados Maritime Transport Administration, which was established under the shipping, Section 7 of the Shipping Domestic Vessels Act of 2024, responsible for all IMO-related oversight activities, and entering into a new area, space affairs, regulation of ocean-based space activities, including launch and recovery and research of cosmic water resources. Of course, I may add and inform the Honourable Chamber that my ministry is currently working on exploring such synergies between maritime and space sectors. Some of these synergies are going to be highlighted within the bill. And of course, I will tell Barbadians to stay tuned because we have some very interesting and exciting opportunities First, not only because we are a tourism-based economy, but also I think it will augur well for the development of our education and, of course, our young people within the society. Part 3 of the bill, which deals with clauses 15 through to 21, outlining the governance framework for the maritime areas. It also establishes a coastal state activities coordination program. Under sub-program 1 of the program focuses on shipping-related coastal state activities, and sub-program 2 focuses on non-shipping coastal state activities, which is sub-program 1 of the IMO specific. Of course, Section 4 defines the maritime zones. Of course, the bill will speak to several distinct maritime zones within each of the specific legal statuses and rights that we have, including internal waters at Clause 24 of the bill, which establishes Barbados's internal waters in accordance with Article 8 of the United Nations Convention Law of the Sea. Territorial water, territorial sea as well, is at Clause 25 through to 29. The bill discusses and outlines the territorial sea regime. Barbados is, of course, 12 nautical miles territorial sea, is established in accordance with Article 3 of the United Nations Convention and Law of the Sea. Under that convention, Barbados has full sovereignty over airspace, the water column, the seabed, subsoil within the territorial sea maritime zone. Of course, the contiguous zone, if you look at section clauses 30 to 32 of the bill, it accords the limited rights under the United Nations Convention of Law of the Sea in respect to the contiguous zone to Barbados. Of course, we all know a contiguous zone is a maritime area extended from the outer edge of a nation's territorial sea to up to about 24 nautical miles. So extending 24 nautical miles, this zone provides Barbados with the authority to prevent and punish infringements of its customs, its fiscal, immigration, or sanitary laws in accordance with Article 33 of the United Nations Convention. It also strengthened, of course, the underwater cultural heritage protections. And that is very important because, as I said earlier in my remarks, we brought the underwater cultural and heritage bill to this parliament, which we passed. The contiguous zone empowers coastal states like Barbados to undertake measures to protect historical and archaeological objects found at sea and to cooperate in order to do so. Of course, states can treat the removal of such objects from the seabed within the 24 nautical mile contiguous zone without the approval as an infringement of national laws. In addition to that, we also have the exclusive economic zone, clauses 33 to 39. Of course, honorable members well know this, that pursuant to Article 57 of the United Nations Convention of Law of the Sea, Barbados declares a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone in the economic zone. Barbados has various sovereign rights, and I'll just briefly mention some of these. For example, the exploration, utilization, conservation, protection, or management of living, natural, and non-living resources of the seabed, and of course the subsoil. The way you may ask, this is important because, as we all well know, there are people drilling for oil all over the globe, and especially within the Caribbean Sea. And as we continue within the region, people are exploring. It is important for us to ensure that we have exclusive jurisdiction of our zones and that we maintain our sovereign rights as it relates to these matters. And of course, minerals, and I'm sure the honourable member for Christchurch West Central, I'm sure he will wish to speak to these matters because he's also very adept when it comes to these matters. So I look forward and enjoy his his contribution to debate today. Mr. Speaker, it's also about energy production from the water, of course, currents of wind. I'm sure the honourable member for St. James Central will wax warmly on these matters as well, because he has oversight for energy and other matters. So we look forward to his contribution in this debate. Not that I'm putting both members on the spot, but I'm sure that they will have outstanding contributions to make with respect to these matters. Of course, very important as well, the establishment and use of offshore islands, installations and structures. Of course, the world is moving to a situation where from time to time it becomes necessary because maybe shortage of land space to develop offshore islands. And as a result of that, we have to ensure that whatever we do within our economic exclusive zone, that we control our jurisdiction. Authorization or regulation of construction, operation, and the maintenance and use of structures or devices relating to exploration and utilization of resources within the exclusive economic zone. Of course, the regulation of safety of shipping and other economic matters of economic purpose. Mr. Speaker, clauses 40 through to 45 of the bill establishes and outlines the continental shelf regime. On its continental shelf, Barbados, under the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, may explore, utilize, conserve, protect, and manage natural resources on or contained in the continental shelf. Resources in the shelf include, of course, oil, gas, minerals, and of course, diverse marine life. To construct, operate, maintain, the use of offshore islands, offshore terminals, installations. Of course, Mr. Speaker, the continental shelf has the meaning assigned to it within Section 2.1 of the Maritime and Underwater Heritage Act of 2025. Of course, the continental shelf is also submerged, gently sloping edge of a continent that extends from the shoreline to the underwater drop-off point, which is known as the continental slope. Continuing, Mr. Speaker, we may ask, what is the relationship between the two critical zones of the economic development? The relationship between the 200 nautical mile and the exclusive economic zone and the 200 nautical mile intercontinental shelf is explicitly recognized in this bill under clause 34, and I believe that's on page 42. It makes the point, subsection 2, the limits of the intercontinental shelf comprises seabed, subsoil of submarine areas that extend beyond Barbados' territorial sea throughout the natural prolongation of its land territory to the outer edge of the continental margin, or to a distance of 200 nautical miles from the baselines from the breadth of the territorial sea is measured where the outer edge of the continental margin does not extend up to that distance. And it goes on at 3 as well, section 3 within that provision of the law, to state that the laws of Barbados shall apply to offshore islands, installations, and structures. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is very important because, like I said, when people are looking to explore for oil and other minerals, it is important that we ensure that we have built in within the law the necessary safeguards to protect Barbados. And that is very important for us. Of course, the continental shelf is a geographical reality. However, when we speak to the exclusive economic zone, that is a legal matter. Clause 34.2 also specifies the continental shelf within the 200 nautical mile limit. And in addition to that, clauses 34.3 and 4 of the bill, when you look at both, and that's on page 42, as I indicated earlier, and I quoted from the relevant sections, it is important. In fact, let me read section 4. Barbados shall have exclusive jurisdiction over its offshore islands, installation, and structures, including jurisdiction with regard to customs, fiscal, health, safety, and immigration laws and regulations in accordance with Article 60 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Mr. Speaker, that is very important, like I indicated earlier, because it is important that we establish very clearly our rights and we represent those rights within the law. With respect to shipping and maritime zones, from a shipping perspective, the establishment of these maritime zones is critical to us determining the extent of a coastal jurisdiction, security enforcement regulations, and authority over vessels. As you would appreciate, Mr. Speaker, as vessels move from state to state and move from maritime zone to maritime zone, it is important that their compliance and that all the regulatory requirements be met, and therefore this bill sets out to ensure that Barbados has full sovereignty over Barbados's registered ships, irrespective of where they may be, whether in our waters or beyond our waters. In its contiguous zone, in respect of foreign ships, Barbados has limited coastal state jurisdiction to enforce customs, fiscal, immigration, sanitary rules, and to safeguard against trafficking in heritage objects. With respect to the law of the sea regime, state sovereignty decreases further out to sea. Coastal states, including Barbados, have sovereign rights and not sovereignty in respect of activities further out to sea. The bill, therefore, is in line with the United Nations Convention Law of the Sea as it relates to clearly articulating where Barbados has sovereignty and sovereign rights concerning shipping and other oceanic activities in our waters, Mr. Speaker. On the high seas, of course, and in the area, Barbados has complete jurisdiction over vessels flying its flag state that are on the high seas or otherwise carrying out activities in the area. The high seas are all areas of the sea that lie outside of the coastal states' internal waters, territorial sea, and the contiguous zone and the economic and the exclusive economic zone. Of course, we all know that high seas are open to all nations, and no state has the right to claim authority or exercise sovereignty over that area. And as it relates to the high seas, then I'll take members to clauses 46 through to 48 of the bill. On the high seas, in accordance with Article 87 of the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, Barbados has the following freedoms. And it's noted here on page 48 of the bill. Freedom of navigation, freedom of overflight, freedom to lay submarine cables and pipelines, freedom to construct offshore islands and other installations permitted under international law, freedom of fishing, subject to the interests of other states in exercise of their freedom to fish on high seas, and freedom of scientific research. Specifically at clause 47 of the bill, it outlines the maritime safety, security, marine environmental protection, and of course, maritime labor conditions relating to Barbados's vessels on the high seas. This clause forms the basis on detailed technical shipping regulatory regime of the IMO, and of course, in recent specific enactments. Clause 48 of the bill imposes the marine environmental protection obligations on the high seas. Clauses 49 and 50 of the bill pertain to the area that is the common heritage of mankind, ocean minerals regime with respect to Barbados's waters, and the area detailed under Part 6 of the Maritime and Underwater Heritage Act of 2025. Mr. Speaker, the prevention of maritime zones are not only important for coastal states, regulation of shipping and other ocean-related activities. These zones are also important for large ocean states like Barbados, whose maritime space significantly exceed our land territory, thus making our maritime space pivotal for continued and sustainable economic development across various ocean sectors, including, of course, shipping, coastal and marine tourism. Very important, Mr. Speaker. We all know that Barbados depends very heavily on tourism. Fisheries, of course, again, a very important linkage, not only for domestic consumption, but also linkages as it relates to tourism, offshore natural resources development, again for oil and gas and marine renewables and minerals, of course, offshore physical development, and other ocean activities. As we face the ravages of climate change, maritime zone preservation has become even more imminent. To this end, we've inserted from clauses 57 through to 64 in the bill, which links climate resilience and sovereignty. Climate resilience and sovereignty, Mr. Speaker, is of course very important because there are several effects that we continue to suffer as a result of the climate crisis. And therefore, it is important that when we continue with respect to bills that we include in legislation, those areas. So the bill has made the linkage with respect to climate resilience and, of course, sovereignty. In what may be described, Mr. Speaker, as a very progressive move as well, on page 55, clause 58 of the bill, 57 first and then 58, we have made the decision to include the declaration under the 2021 Declaration on Preserving Maritime Zones in the face of climate change related sea level rise, and of course the 2024 Declaration on Sea Level Rise. Again, for the benefit of members, page 54 of the bill, it speaks at clause 57, it speaks to the Declaration on Sea Level Rise. It speaks at clause 58 to sea level rise and existing maritime boundaries as well. What I have been advised, and is something that the experts have also discussed with me, relates to the famous 2014 Bay of Bengal Maritime Arbitration Boundary. That matter between Bangladesh versus India. I'm told that is a landmark case in international law. Mr. Speaker, I am no lawyer, you are versed in these matters. Primarily known for settling long-standing maritime disputes and setting up a crucial precedent that the maritime boundaries are not automatically altered by the physical effects of climate change. And therefore, the tribunal confirmed that once a maritime boundary is settled, it remains stable regardless of potential future sea level rise or coastal changes. And that is very instructive for us, and therefore, in respect of the future yet to be settled maritime boundaries, the bill factors in that while Barbados may legally declare its borders fixed, and neighboring state may disagree, particularly if there's an overlapping claim. The bill therefore allows for future bilateral and multilateral negotiations based on changed realities, example, land reclamation, total submergence, preventing future conflicts. The maritime zones preservation approach in this bill acknowledges that if sea level rise renders a coastline entirely different or a feature disappears, relying solely on old charts might be unsupportable in international courts, thus preparing for a future legally sound renegotiations, especially and essentially, I should say, essentially the maritime zones preservation regime acts as a protective shield to keep what Barbados currently has, while ensuring that legal flexibility to deal with neighbors in the future may be fundamentally different. And that is very instructive for us, and therefore those provisions have been incorporated into the bill. With respect to the rationale for the maritime zones, again, it's about legal stability and, of course, predictability. As we approach new frontiers as well, Clause 6 of the bill, clauses 65 to 81, speaks to the marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdictions. Of course, that is very important considering what we are faced with, particularly in the world today. And of course, the bill speaks to emerging frontiers. Again, clauses 82 to 90. If you look there, you'll see that the bill creates inroads into new frontiers presented at the nexus of space and maritime sectors, playing a pivotal role. We, of course, know that we had the project here back in the 1960s. We, of course, know that it was located near Sewell Airport, as it was named then, now Grant Adams International Airport. And essentially, I'm advised that Barbados was chosen for the close proximity because of the 13 degrees north, which levels proximity to the equator, which of course leverages Earth rotation. We are also going to be exploring additional opportunities, like I said, for the maritime sector to support space. Space launch activities usually occur near coastal and marine areas for safety, logistical efficiency, and of course taking advantage of the Earth's rotation to maximize the launch efficiency. Coastal locations provide a large unpopulated downrange area to ensure that in the event of a launch failure or routine disposal of rocket stages, debris falls into the ocean rather than on inhabited land. So, Mr. Speaker, as I indicated earlier as well, my ministry is currently undergoing deep exploration on behalf of the government and a symbiotic relationship between space transport, of course, and maritime transport sectors. And of course, we will, at a later stage, talk about that. And I look forward, of course, to bringing the specific aspects of these two sectors to this honorable chamber, and I hope to do so later this year, Mr. Speaker. Suffice to say that at this juncture, the Maritime Areas Jurisdiction and Rights Bill provides a legal basis for utilizing maritime areas for the recovery of space-bound objects and extraterrestrial research, including research directed at extraterrestrial oceans and other cosmic water resources. To this end, therefore, Mr. Speaker, Barbados Space-Related Ocean Program is covered under this bill. Mr. Speaker, Part 8 of the bill essentially leverages and tailors for Barbados the joint work of the IMO and the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. The IMO and the United Nations Office for Outer Space are currently collaborating on various matters, including the UN Space Coordination. Both organizations are participating in entities in UN space, which coordinates UN activities relating to space applications, including satellite monitoring for ocean surveillance, maritime safety, of course, and environmental protection. Satellite technology for maritime safety, environmental protection, and shared technical standards. And of course, clauses 90 to 98, Mr. Speaker, the bill provides for miscellaneous matters, including environmental cleanup and restoration. It talks about the designation by the Barbados Port Inc. Of sea lanes and traffic separation schemes. It also speaks to the making of orders in the interests of peace, good order, or security of Barbados. And, Mr. Speaker, it also speaks to the regulations making powers by various ministers specified in the bill that I would have alluded to during my introductory remarks, Mr. Speaker. But overall, the bill, Mr. Speaker, addresses the IMO audit deficiencies specific to coastal state control regulation. It clarifies the jurisdiction and rights with respect to Barbados' waters broadly within the specific maritime zones within our waters. The bill also regulates activities by Barbados in areas beyond national jurisdiction in accordance with international law. And most critically, Mr. Speaker, the bill protects Barbados' maritime areas while establishing a holistic regulatory framework for shipping and non-shipping ocean-based activities in the maritime areas. And Mr. Speaker, with respect to, and I will obviously thank the officers again in my closing paragraphs or so. But Mr. Speaker, I now move on to the Seafarers Bill 2026. And Mr. Speaker, I don't want the Honourable Chamber to be confused with seafarers with those who go to sea and they fish and then they come back. Of course, as we all know that seafarers, when we speak to seafarers, we talk about those professionals who work on cruise ships and cargo ships and other types of vessels, Mr. Speaker, who spend months away from home at sea and land doing what they have to do in order to ensure that trade, which I'm told accounts for, shipping, which accounts for 90% of the movement of goods across the globe. The International Maritime Organization has also dubbed the seafarers as the lifeblood of the shipping industry. And to this end, they work jointly and continuously to ensure the well-being of seafarers, and this, of course, has to remain paramount. Of course, Mr. Speaker, we all know that the IMO ensures that the global shipping industry is manned by highly skilled and competent personnel through the harmonization of standards, seafarers training, and these are all laid down, of course, in the international convention. And I'll speak to this a bit later. But what is important for us as well is that we have also incorporated those standards within our legislation. The ILO, of course, also ensures that seafarers around the globe they secure decent shipboard living, they secure good working conditions, of course, through its comprehensive labor at sea regime, which is enshrined again in the Maritime Labor Convention. Barbados, as we all know, or we should know, is a party to both the Maritime Labor Convention and the Standards of Training and Certification Watchkeepers for Seafarers, what we refer to commonly as the STCW, which is the 1978 instrument as amended. The Seafarers suite of laws will comprise of one bill and approximately 16 regulations to follow. But the discussion here today, Mr. Speaker, has to do about the importance of this bill to Barbados and wearing under its various hats, of course, as an important IMO STCW contracting party. It is important for us as well as an open registry state, and of course as a seafarer supplier, labor supply state. It is important that we incorporate these matters into the Seafarers Bill. The convention with respect to the standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping for seafarers, again the STCW, which is, as I said, it's commonly referred to. Barbados has a duty under that convention to ensure that seafarers living on board international seagoing Barbados registered vessels and Barbadian seafarers serving on non-Barbados vessels are trained, that they're certified, and that they're competent to operate very safely a vessel in accordance with the IMO standards. And again, I will stress and make this point time and time again that maritime safety is paramount in all facets of shipping. Maritime competency-based safety extends not only the unification of training assessment, but also the certification of seafarers. With respect to the Maritime Labor Convention, again, Barbados as a contracting party to the convention, we have to ensure, in fact, we have a duty to ensure that pre-hiring up to the time seafarers retire, that the maritime labor protections internationally accorded to seafarers are complied with. A note that I said pre-hiring, as the ILO has outlined, recruitment requirements for persons intended to be seafarers, and we will discuss this a bit later. So that the STCW convention is specific to seafarer competency, and the MLC is specific to seafarers' physical, mental, and social well-being. Of course, we have to address, and we have addressed in the bill, the seafaring affairs, which already were addressed by the International Labour Organization in the following areas: shipboard requirements, minimum requirements to work on a ship, conditions of employment, shipboard living, health protection, medical care, welfare, social security protection, compliance, and enforcement. Barbados's general duties under under both conventions are also included and established under Part 1. And if you go to clauses 1 to 10 of the bill, you will see that we've built them out in other parts of the bill as well, but it's also important that we incorporate those into the bill. So the operating as a contracting party, of course, advancing the suite of laws as we have done, We've also made provision, and as we have outlined the objects and reasons of the bill, to which would have made provision for the implementation of both conventions. It speaks also to the implementation of Maritime Labor Convention 2006 and the framework in which to support it. Clauses Part 2, clauses 12 to 31 of the bill speaks very generally to CFIR's standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping regulations, and of course the CFIR's assessment and certification regulations, again in accordance with the ILO conventions. Barbados, as I indicated not so long ago, operates as an open registry state, meaning that the register is open to all nations. In short, none of the following factors affect a ship owner who desires to flag the ship in Barbados: the place of bill of ship owner's nationality, or the nationality of the CFIR's ship owners are on board. But an open state register obviously places Barbados, in this case, under immense scrutiny because ship owners traditionally flock to open registries. But what we are concerned with, and therefore we have to ensure, because we're open state registry, we have to ensure that when those vessels flag the Barbados flag, that they do so with confidence as opposed to a flag of convenience. And that is why we have ensured that within the CFIR's bill, we have put in the necessary protections to ensure that a positive relationship continues to operate between a country's commitment and its efforts. And therefore, Barbados is well placed as a result of all the work that we have done, including the conventions that I refer to, including compliance with other ILO standards, to ensure that we maintain this fair suite of laws in a context that is not only sound regulatory, but we also have the necessary regimes in place to ensure we level the playing field as it relates to seafarers and, of course, ship owners. And therefore, we have built in to the suite a number of protections that we have set out in the bill. Like I said, flag state control, port state control, and of course the seafarers labor supply state control. Those are all built in. As it relates to the definitions of the seafarer, we have, of course, adopted the definition. We have defined that in Clause 2 as a person who is employed, engaged, or works in any capacity on board a ship. And that we've also gone to the extent that we've made it very clear that a person who's employed, engaged, or works in a capacity respect of a maritime autonomous ship vessel, because this is a very emerging aspect of maritime, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But it's important that we ensure that we have all the necessary STCW clauses enshrined within this bill to ensure we have protection of seafarers. Mr. Speaker, I will continue to make the point that Barbados has been, Barbados has been historically known for supplying global shipping lines and the industry with skilled, talented seamen. You go back to many years ago when, as little boys and girls, we would hear our parents or our friends and family relating and telling stories of seamen, as they called them back then, who would leave Barbados and go to work on ships and go for an extended period, not only to see other parts, but of course as part of the wealth development of people. And you will always hear stories of these persons who, seamen as they call them, will go to sea and come back, and they either improve their lot, improve their homes, improve the lives of the family. So there's a deep connection with seafarers and Barbados, of course. And as we continue to supply labor to, of course, the shipping industry, it is important we do so, but we do so operating on the basis that we adhere to international conventions, and that we also ensure that Barbados registered vessels, that they also conform and comply with the requirements set out in the respective conventions. And therefore, at clauses 32 to 41, part 3 of the bill, page 57, we have set out the rights, including right to refuse work on a ship that employs child labor, the right to a safe and secure workplace that complies with the safety standards, a right to fair terms of employment, a right to health protection, Medicare, welfare measures, and other forms of social protection. Clauses 42 to 78 also outlines the minimum requirements for seafarers to work on board the ships. I'm not going to detain the House by listing everything, but we must specify and must state here that there must be STCW basic level competence. They must be they must not be under the age of 18 years, in keeping with the ILO measures to prevent against child labor, and they must, of course, be certified medical fit. I'm not going to go through all in detail as I indicated, but of course, part 4 of the bill is further strengthened by the seafarers' standards of training and watchkeeping regulations. We've also added the seafarers' minimum age regulations and the seafarers' medical certification regulations to support. It also, Part 4 also establishes standards to be adhered by private and public maritime training providers, providing seafarers training, seafarers recruitment, and agency placements. And of course, we will continue to do the training that we have started, thanks to the work of the officers within the ministry, with the various tertiary educations that I will speak to. But we have to ensure, Mr. Speaker, and I know I'm stressing this point, that we have a standards-based agency, and that is why we have incorporated a lot of them within the bill. As it relates to Part 5, clauses 79 to 168, again, it outlines the conditions of employment for seafarers. The conditions are aimed at ensuring that seafarers have decent and fair working conditions. It sets out, Mr. Speaker, for example, contained within the bill, the terms and conditions for employment of a seafarer shall be set out in clear, written, legally enforceable agreements. It talks about the fact, sounds silly, but very important, seafarer's full name, date of birth, age, and birthplace, the ship owner's name and address, the place when the agreement was entered into, the conditions of service, the conditions of termination if you are at sea. Mr. Speaker, it speaks again about health and social security protections. It talks about the entitlement of the seafarer at sea to repatriation. Because, Mr. Speaker, you know, when you're there and somebody decides, well, this is the end, you have to ensure that the seafarer is not left stranded. And this bill has incorporated a number of features to ensure that we protect the employment and the repatriation of workers, especially those who are on Barbados registered vessel, and beyond that, to ensure that all agreements, whether they are contracted here or elsewhere, that it conforms to the law. Mr. Speaker, the breadth of the seafarers' employment agreements is, of course, continues to be a testament to the ILO's commitment to protecting seafarers. Of course, the member for St. George North and the honourable member for St. George North and honourable member for St. Peter, of course, they are experts relating to ILO and matters of the lake, and they can wax, of course, very warmly on these matters. And of course, I'm sure they may wish to speak on the bill. But it's important that when they go through the bill, that they can see that all the work that they continue to do when they leave Barbados, working with the International Labour Organization and all the various committees that they support, and of course, the annual meetings, that they can see that the outstanding work and contributions to the work that they do there, we have also taken the opportunity to incorporate them into this bill. And therefore, from the seafarers' employment agreements to conditions of service, we have ensured, including, for example, the time periods set out to work for these persons, the fact that they should not exceed a 14-hour, if the limits on hours of work for seafarers within a 24-hour period, the fact that a seafarer shall be granted paid annual leave, and matters of that nature. So we've sought to enhance the bill with those things. So that is why you will see Part 5 of the bill is further enhanced, Mr. Speaker, by ensuring, for example, that we have the seafarers' employment regulations, the wage regulations, the hours of work and rest, the repatriation, safe manning, identity documents, Mr. Speaker, and the like. So we have included those as regulations. Of course, the IMO ultimately leaves the setting of minimum wage to the state, and of course we will continue to work with the Ministry of Labour and consult with them as well with respect to, because the Ministry of Labour obviously is responsible for the aspect, to ensure that we, of course, for seafarers, that we have what is required as the basic minimum rate. Of course, we will continue to ensure that we, through advancement in legislation, advancement through regulations, that we continue to protect our seafarers, because we have to ensure that is done at all costs. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to go through in detail other aspects of that, but what I would like to do, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we continue to advance skills development within the sector. You may recall that my ministry, led by the Maritime Division, would have launched back in October last year, I believe it's October 8th last year, the Barbados Maritime Transport, what we call the National Maritime Training and Employment Program. That, of course, that launch was necessary because it looked at not only an opportunity to train and develop, but it's also an implementation tool where we want to do we continue the education, we want to continue maritime training to ensure that we prepare Barbadians with the appropriate skills, that they're competent, so that if they wish to engage and work on board a ship or work relating to any maritime event, that they are so well trained to do. So we're going to continue to build on our human resource capacity through training, through education and development. And I want to take the opportunity to thank the officers who would have initiated the National Maritime Training and Employment Program within the ministry for the outstanding work that they've done. I would also, at this point as well, like to recognize the commitment of the Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute, the Barbados Community College, and of course BIMAC, who came on board supporting the department's efforts and ensuring that all the work that the Barbados Maritime Transport Association put in to the development of the National Maritime Training and Employment Program, that we will become the beneficiaries of not only a trained labor force in respect of persons who wish to participate in marine works. So that training will continue. We want to ensure that we have the apparatus in place, again, for future career prospects, to ensure that we, of course, advance our industry. You recall, Mr. Speaker, that there are a number of opportunities. We've already started promoting seafaring as a career prospect through, for example, when we came to Parliament, I believe it's in 2025, when we advanced the Seaport Industry Management Operations and Development Act. That was 2025. And Section 35(1) of that Act spoke to the Seaport Act, which encourages, for example, home porting vessels to hire a percentage of certified seafarers in accordance with the third schedule to that bill, to the Act, sorry. We've also ensured, for example, that through the seafarers' paternity and pregnancy, and maternity regulations, that we support expectant mothers within the shipping sector, accordance with the IMO's gender mandate, the seafarers' social security regulations as well, which provides a detailed regime for qualifying maritime social workers. So we've done a lot of work within that segment. With respect to Section 6, clauses 169 to 199, it outlines the requirements for shipboard accommodation, of course, recreational, food and catering. Of course, Mr. Speaker, if you're a land-based, it doesn't bother you because you can leave and you can go to a restaurant or you can go to a food truck and you can get some food. But when you're at sea, you don't have that luxury. And therefore, we have to ensure that whenever you have workers working on vessels, that they are accommodated, because their place of work is also their place of abode. and therefore, Mr. Speaker, is important, and we've so recognized, even down, silly as it sounds, Mr. Speaker, to the size of the room and other accommodation spaces, ensuring that there's adequate heating or ventilation, or both, I should say, ensuring that there are sanitary facilities, appropriate lighting, that there are facilities, medical facilities, and of course, recreational facilities. Part 6 of the bill additionally requires the ship owners to ensure that seafarers have access to good quality nutrition, food and nutrition as well, again, it sounds silly, but good quality drinking water. And of course, that these things such as food and drinking water shall be provided free of charge to seafarers during the course of the employment. At page 146, section 7, clauses 200 to 218, the bill again outlines the health protections and the medical care, all those that are necessary. And most importantly, Mr. Speaker, the bill aligns with the Maritime Labour Convention provisions. The bill is also, Part 7 is also further supported by the Seafarers Employment Regulations and the Seafarers Occupational Health and Safety Regulations. At Part 8, clauses 219 to 254 of the bill, it outlines the compliance enforcement regime for ensuring and verifying compliance with the Maritime Labour Convention. Of course, this is very important because you must have an opportunity for the inspection of living and working conditions on board ships. And of course, in that respect, Barbados registered ships obviously have a duty to ensure that they comply and that they have the necessary maritime certificate and declaration of maritime labor compliance, which should be issued, Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the Seafarers Bill as we have it documented here. With respect to the regulations, the Seafarers Bill, there are a number of instruments, of course, that regulate and continues to be had within the compliance regime. We have the Seafarers Maritime Labor Inspections Regulation. We have the Merchant Shipping Port State Control Regulation, which entered into force back in May last year, May 5th of last year. And we also have, for example, the Merchant Shipping Vessels Survey and Certification Regulations, again, which came into force May 5th of 2025. Part 9 of the bill on page 208, clauses 255 to 258, again facilitates compliance verification specific to seafarers recruitment and placement agencies. Of course, it is important that we ensure that we have within vessels trained persons, as I indicated earlier, but that the Barbados Maritime Transport Administration will periodically audit the seafarers recruitment and placement agencies and the seafarers education to ensure that we have continued compliance with international maritime standards. Part 10 of the bill sets out, that's clauses 259 to 276. It outlines the regulatory framework for remote ships operators. As you well know, is an area where there's increasing digitization and of the maritime sector, and we are gradually approaching an area where people believe we will have a lot of autonomous shipping activities going on. And as a result of that, we have to ensure that such new and emerging features are properly accounted for within the bill. And we have also set out within the Seafarers Bill to ensure that we have that shifting requirements documented, because you will have to have trained persons to operate remote vessels, and that is also accounted for within the bill. It's a new form. Some people say that is a new form of seafarers because you will have what we call the so-called, or what we refer to as remote ship operators, which will also require labor protections. And to this end, Clause 260 of the bill explicitly states that a remote ship operator shall be provided with a standard of treatment equivalent to that of a conventional seafarer physically serving on board ships, taking into additional account the human health, social and psychological well-being needs of persons working in high-intensity automated operational environments, Mr. Speaker. So that, and again, it is necessary that we continue to safeguard the maritime labor welfare of remote ship operators in this age of autonomous shipping. Mr. Speaker, I would wish to remind the Honourable Chamber that we would have brought, speaking about autonomous ships, we would have brought the, the Seaport Industry Management Operations and Development Act 2025, which requires the Barbados Port Inc. to incorporate into its work program port-specific measures to facilitate autonomous vessels and accommodate other port-related autonomous marine activities. So those are already in train, and again, the bill has sought to deal with aspects of what we're seeing developing within the maritime community. Part 11, clauses 277 to 283 of the bill outlines, of course, dispute settlement regime for settling maritime disputes. Clause 281 also provides for the inclusion of dispute settlement jurisdiction. You can have a choice if you want settled in Barbados or dispute settled in a flag state. The distinction, obviously, at Clause 28 between dispute settlement in Barbados and a disputed settlement in a flag state is important, as the flag state may not always be Barbados, especially in cases of Barbadian seafarers working on board foreign flagships. Mr. Speaker, Part 12, Clauses 284 to 290 addresses matter relating to gender mainstreaming, maternity and paternity of seafarers. It speaks about the rights of female seafarers of any nationality working on a Barbados registered ship and a female seafarer who's a national of Barbados working on a foreign registered ship and has the rights to, like I said, equality in the maritime career and education opportunities, minimum wages and working conditions. It speaks to the same working hours as the male counterparts. It speaks to the payment of overtime above the stipulated hours of work, not to be denied a maritime post on a ship based on sex, or her sex that is, not to be discriminated against any maritime job in any form on her sex in terms of equipment, working conditions, or facilities, Mr. Speaker. In the case of maternity, to the same rights of any other profession, and in the case of a pregnant seafarer, to maternity rights and benefits, where the ship is sailing with a medical practitioner on board to be repatriated on the advice of the medical practitioners. So, Mr. Speaker, a range of protections and rights that we have incorporated into the bill, including, Mr. Speaker, the right to be protected from hazardous conditions while on board, to reemployment after maternity leave, and to any other rights accorded under any national maternity laws, of course. To seafarers to join, for example, a seafarers union, of course, and to access medical advice on board, on shore, and confidential medical advice, and of course, the safety on board. So these are all rights that have been provided for in section clause 284 with respect to females, Mr. Speaker. The bill at 286 sets out the specifics relating to maternity and seafarers, and of course, it also, clause 46 also, it provides for the standard and extended maternity leave for workers. And you will see, for example, an expectant, clause 2864, it provides for an expectant female seafarer to be entitled to birth of a single child, birth of 2 or more children. You see the range of benefits in terms of maternity leave that they are entitled to there. Of course, in respect of paternity leave for male seafarers, we also have the paternal seafarer is entitled to, of course, benefits, and we've set those out in clause 287 as well. As it relates to Part 13, clauses 291 to 304, the bill also outlines a regime for the fair and proper treatment of seafarers. Now, this is very important, Mr. Speaker. because, you know, during pandemics and during the last pandemic, we had people who were at sea, and obviously there were many challenges that I will not want to, in the interest of time, going to rehash. But suffice to say that we now have a body of conventions. There are provisions, that have been addressed, and there are concerns that have been raised at the level of the ILO, the International Transport Workers Federation, the International Chamber of Shipping, and International Maritime Health Association in relation to how seafarers were treated during the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. Of course, we have to ensure that as we move forward, that we ensure that that no exercise of flag or port state duties concerning seafarers during COVID should cause a country or a people or seafarers as well to be mistreated. And Mr. Speaker, we have noted that, and we have, for example, included at Part 13, clauses 291 to 304, a range of what we believe to be a regime for fair and proper treatment of seafarers during a pandemic outbreak, Mr. Speaker. The IMO Convention as well, as it relates to seafarers, I think it's also important to recognize that seafarers are key workers during a public health pandemic, and Clause 295(3) of the bill automatically accords key worker status to seafarers during a pandemic outbreak of international concern. And of course, the FAL Act, which is the Facilitation of International Maritime Traffic, what we refer to as the FAL, which was, of course, subjected to, as part of Clause 295 in the bill, that in the event of any pandemic disease outbreak, seafarers will not be subject to substantial delays in repatriation to their home countries, be faced with uncertainty on resumption of flights when crew changes will happen, be faced with economic hardships while having to wait to join a ship, Mr. Speaker, or be generally be able to move freely between air and sea. So we've taken that into consideration as well, Mr. Speaker. But clauses 305 to 310 regulates the human element of deep sea mining sector, and of course, we also have the Merchant Shipping Act, and Section 136 of the Merchant Shipping Act also provides for the registration of deep sea mining, just to remind the Chamber. So I think, Mr. Speaker, we have gone the route of ensuring that seafarers are properly protected. We've spoken to their rights, their benefits, but we've also taken the opportunity to ensure in this very extensive bill that we have taken note of what we believe to be a range of conventions and discussions emanating with respect to the operations of seafarers. And therefore, I want to once again thank the officers within the ministry for all their work. Let me, before I call them by their name, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize, I should have given notice. My apologies, sir. But if you allow me to call names, I shall do so. Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to express thanks to the Office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel for the support with respect to this matter. Special thanks to the Deputy Chief Parliamentary Counsel, Sean Bell, who's been working with my ministry with respect to advancing a lot of the bills that you see coming here, but particularly this one, this very important bill. Rhea Drakes as well, the Senior Parliamentary Counsel, the legislative drafter who masterfully converted the drafting instructions in respect of this matter. Mr. Speaker, I'm not a lawyer, as you know. You are a lawyer, but it is a very complex process. I've been advised, and the Director of Ocean Affairs has so advised me it is a very complex, and she's very passionate. And I also have to recognize her, Ms. Najla King, of course, who's here with us, providing necessary technical resource to the officers, and of course, the Chief Technical Officer in the Ministry who's acting as Permanent Secretary, Ms. Dion Gibbs-Nichols, within the International Transport Division, and of course, members of the team within the ministry who would have worked hard. As I indicated, Mr. Speaker, between 2024 and 2025, we brought 10 bills before this chamber, again addressing the issues relating to the IMO audit consideration. We have 2 bills today. And of course, I have to inform the chamber that there are many bills, many other bills with respect to maritime affairs that we have to bring. But we're doing so because, as you will recognize within the international community, and certainly what is happening in the Middle East now, where you have a number of ships, some people may argue, stranded within the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, we also have concerns, and that is why when you look at what we are doing here with the Seafarers Bill, you can well appreciate the volume of work that has gone into this bill when compared to what is happening. There are real-life examples out there, Mr. Speaker, where people have, seafarers have remained on board a ship for an extended period of time. Some people have uncertainty. Of course, there are questions relating to, of course, maybe even life. Of course, these are all matters. So that perhaps gives an example of why we are doing what we're doing now to ensure that we have. The other critical point for this bill is that Barbados continues to be, and if we want to continue to attract more registered vessels as part of our registry based in the United Kingdom, it is important for us to continually update our legislation, to bring new legislation where necessary to ensure that we even get more business. And that is also an integral part of why we are bringing these bills to Parliament. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, is an opportunity where we, with all the work we're doing, all the training that we're doing, all the partnerships that we're involved with tertiary level institutions that we want, and other training institutions that we want to ensure that Barbadians as well have more career opportunities within the maritime sector. And that is really an opportunity for all of us to be proud of. And that is why we continue. Even with all the uncertainty going around the world, Mr. Speaker, this is now a situation where we have to monitor, even for tourism, Mr. Speaker, as Minister of Tourism and International Transport, you have to be traveling, but you also have to be keeping abreast of what is happening. You also have to be ready, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that you have strategies, but you flex the strategies as appropriate to ensure in this very geopolitical environment that we have the appropriate measures. And I could think perhaps of no other way to close off the debate by indicating that this bill and the lived reality that the seafarers are experiencing now within the Middle Eastern part of the world, that this is what you call a response to and a mechanism to ensure that we maintain not only safety, but we maintain conditions of service for our seafarers. So, Mr. Speaker, I will simply ask that the bill be read a second time, and like I said, thank the officers, all the officers associated with the bill who would have put in a lot of hard work to get in both bills where they are today. Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member, you have to move the first bill, Order 6 first.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. I beg to move that Order number 6, the Maritime Areas Jurisdiction and Rights Bill 2026, be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Seafarers Bill.
No. The one first.
Okay.
We do that second. Honourable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 2:30 p.m.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 2:30 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands suspended until 2:30 p.m.